Welcome to Talks Sabah, and I am your host, Joanna Suhenli Rampas, and today we are grateful that we have Professor Wong Chin Huat, who is the political scientist at Sunway University and a member of Project Stability and Accountability for Malaysia Project Sama. Thank you, Prof. Wong, for coming here to our studio and having this podcast session with you.
Thank you. Kopi Sanangan and Salam Songgom. Friends in Sabah, I'm very grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. Right. Kopi sanangan lagi, kopi besian lagi kumadia. Salam Songgom is actually a Baja word when he says good evening.
Yes.
So in Dusun, since you're wearing traditional clothing, yes, and in Dusun we call it Sanong Sodopon.
Sanong
Sodopon. Sanong Sodopon. Yeah.
Sanong Sodopon.
Sanong Sodopon kumad tampinay ngawi.
Okay,
that's
tampinay ngawi.
Meaning saudara dan saudari.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a lesson there.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Prof, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today in this podcast session, and let's get straight to it. So you have been talking. In fact, you've been writing a lot on Sabah, MA63, 35%, decentralization, and so forth, right? And this is one of the hot topics over the last 1 or 2 years that, scholars, politicians have been discussing about this 35% seat safeguard here in Sabah and Sarawak, right? So when Malaysia was formed in 1963, right, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore, for that matter, together, they held about 34.6% of parliamentary seats, okay? To ensure that constitutional changes couldn't happen without Borneo's consent.
Yep. Singapore.
Borneo and Singapore, yeah. Well, today, let's look at the parliamentary seats now, right? Since Singapore left in 1963. 65, yes. And today, Sabah and Sarawak, or the Borneo states, hold less than, or in fact, they only have 25% seat left, right? And some scholars have argued that, it is essential to have 35%. To safeguard our autonomy, and legal scholars have also mentioned that we need to shift 21 seats from West Malaysia to East Malaysia without expanding parliament. All right. So, but then you, on the other hand, have said something different about it, right? So, before we move on any further, maybe perhaps you could talk about the historical part of this, and then we can discuss even further about this.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about history, there are two things we need to clarify. The first thing is the myth that this is from MA63 alone, saying that you would have 35% for Sabah and Sarawak or Singapore as a veto bloc, and so that you should inherit it after Singapore left.
Okay.
Right. Second myth is that the Singapore seats were taken up by Malaya in 1973. Let me go one by one. Okay. This 35% reservation for Sabah and Sarawak has two original factors. One is Malaya distrust of Singapore. Therefore, even though Singapore has more population than Sabah and Sarawak then, the seat given to Singapore was only 15 as compared to Sarawak 24 and Sabah or North Borneo then 16. So first thing is that Malaya doesn't want Singapore to have equal representation. They want to underrepresent Singapore. Second is that Sabah and Sarawak doesn't trust Malaya. So these two things combined, what it means is that the seats that Singapore should have is actually transferred to Sabah and Sarawak. And on top of that, top it up so that the three states have had wanted, as you say, 34.6% to block off any unilateral constitutional amendment from Malaya. Now, this was provided in only in Article 161E, Clause 2, Paragraph E, which say that the percentage given to Sabah and Sarawak cannot be amended without the concurrence of TYT, namely the state government,
Yes.
for up to 7 years until August 1970. What does it mean before that? You cannot just simply change the percentage of Sabah and Sarawak by just passing constitutional amendment in the upper and the lower house. So you need Sabah concurrence, Sabah and Sarawak concurrence. That's it. What it means is that the whole provision has only a 7 years period. After August, that's no longer guarantee. After August, everything, you don't even need Sabah and Sarawak state government concurrence. You can actually change it in the lower and the upper house. That's the facts that if you want to go back to history. Yeah. So when people say that Malaya take this up, one story we hear is this, that Malaya take this up. They push Singapore out without the consent of Sabah and Sarawak.
Yeah.
And so if Sabah and Sarawak had known about this, they would say the 15 seats from Singapore should have been inherited by us. You have heard of this story,
Yes,
right?
yes. Which
Now,
I mentioned just now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look at it. Singapore was kicked out in 1965.
Right.
And the numbers of parliamentary seats remained 144 up to 1973.
Okay.
10 more seats were added to Malaya in 1973.
Okay.
It was not a 15 transfer. It's 15 gone, then you add back 10. Now, there was a 8 years period of response time, right? Why didn't Sabah and Sarawak ask for it? So there was no such thing, even at that time, in the minds of the founding fathers of Sabah and Sarawak, that the seats have to be transferred, that Sabah and Sarawak would inherit Singapore seats. Because that wanted, it was not an overall representation from Sabah and Sarawak, but was the under-representation of Singapore transferred to Sabah and Sarawak.
Okay, so academically, is then, are you saying now that 35% is not a legal right under MA 63, but then it's more of a political principle that needs negotiation?
At that time, for 7 years.
All right, okay. So what about now then?
So now if we want to talk about this, we cannot fall back to some historical myth. We have to look back at democratic principle.
Okay.
Right? So I want to go back what you started saying, that say this is to ensure Sabah and Sarawak rights in would not be done away with unilateral constitutional amendment from Malaya.
Okay.
Right? That's the part that you say, right? We want to have the veto power, the unilateral constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Now that's legitimate. So how do we do it? To block any constitutional amendment, you have two ways. One is the lower house, one is the upper house. Their powers are the same.
Sure, yeah.
The upper house only has lesser power in ordinary bill. Non-monetary bill, you can only block it for 1 year. For budget, you can only block it for 1 month. But when you come to constitutional amendment, they're exactly the same. If you cannot pass something in the upper house, you cannot pass it. This is actually what we are coming to.
Okay.
If it's just purely about constitutional amendment, the solution should be give Sabah and Sarawak immediately 35% in Dewan Negara. And this is possible because if we want to amend Article 45, which provides for the composition of Dewan Negara, it's a very straightforward thing. Currently, every state, including Sabah and Sarawak, you have only 2 seats. Right? Labuan, you have 1. So add together, you have only 5. The total is 70. If we now expand Dewan Negara to 70 seats, so add 30 seats extra, 15 go to Sabah, 15 go to Sarawak, so they would have 17 on their own, right? Together they have 34 out of 100, right? Plus Labuan, 35.
Okay.
So we basically can get that. If autonomy is really, if veto power on constitutional amendment is really what we want. And I would say to protect Sabah and Sarawak from any amendment affecting Sabah and Sarawak, it's not enough just to give the veto in Dewan Negara.
Okay.
Just now I mentioned about Article 161E2 2E, right? That part actually say you need a concurrence of the TYT, yang di-Pertuan Negeri. That's mean the state government. How can you be sure that your state government always protect your interests, right? Today, people in Sabah and Sarawak are questioning the Petroleum Development Act. All this were agreed by the Sabah and Sarawak state government then. So the better way to do is that anything affecting Sabah and Sarawak interests in the federal constitution, we should give them double veto. First, a general veto in Dewan Negara, 35 out of 100 seats for Sabah and Sarawak and Labuan. Second, you need a concurrence, 2/3 concurrence if you want, at the Dun Negeri.
Okay. Now, before we move on to Dun Negeri, let's look at Dewan Negara first, right? So we see like Dewan Negara is not elected.
Yes.
You see? They are appointed.
Yes.
And they are there every 2 years, you change.
3 years.
3 years, sorry. As a senator, then you change, right? But then you make the, you bahas lah. You bahas undang-undang, everything, in Dewan Negara. Sorry, Dewan Rakyat.
Yeah.
Right? So there are two things that I want to ask you here, right? I mean, like, number one, is this democratic? Kan? Okay, you say, yes, it is democratic. But secondly, don't you think that the reason why we would want to have 35% more seats is because that, we are larger states. We have more, geographically talking, we are larger than West Malaysia, So that's why we want 35%.
Yeah. That was actually the point raised by some Sarawakian in the Cobalt report.
Okay.
But it was not taken into IGC report.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because it doesn't hold water. Now, I'll give you an international example. If we go into Google this place called Durack, D-U-R-A-C-K, in Australia, you find that makes up almost 90% of West Australia. You know how big is this? Larger than South Africa.
Okay.
They send only one MP to Canberra.
All right.
Yeah. What does it mean? Because in Australia, you give seats to people, you don't give to land. You don't give to soil. You don't give to sand. So the same thing. Anywhere in the world when we talk about democracy is representation of the people. So in that sense, we cannot use the geographical area size to demand for seats. However, there can be over-representation for states, especially because we are a federation. A federation means that you recognize every state as an individual entity. So for example, in Semenanjung, Perlis is very tiny, Selangor is very populous, but Perlis and Selangor have the same number of representatives in the upper house. That's equality. But they don't have the same number in the lower house because Perlis has 3 MPs, Selangor has 22. Why? Because when you come to lower house, where governments is formed, you need to go back to proportionality of people. So these are the two different concepts.
Okay.
In a federation, your lower house represent the popular view, so it should be proportional. Another word, one person, one vote, one value. And so we have to be fair. In that case, why? Because this is the government this is the house that form the government, that decides the main direction.
Right.
But in the upper house, you can give small states like Perlis the same amount of power like Selangor, but even special power for special states like Sabah and Sarawak. You can. But what's their job? Their job is not to form government. Their job is to force a rethink, force renegotiation, force compromises.
Okay.
So imagine that we are driving a car. You press on the pedal for fuel, that's lower house. You press brake, that's upper house.
Okay.
So small state can have the power for brake. That's what we talk about when we say veto power, autonomy. You want to protect that, you can. Now, but if you want a lower house, then you basically you want to say that I want to have an oversized control of the formations of the government. What it means is very plain. if Sabah and Sarawak get 35% with only 17% of voters, you can form a simple majority government of 51% by getting only 16% from Semenanjung, right?
Yes.
Which means that Semenanjung has 83% of voters, but if 16% of them all join force in Sabah and Sarawak and Labuan, you form a government. Now, do you think that kind of government would last? It wouldn't.
It won't, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It will be much fragile than the first PH government.
Right, okay.
So that's where the problem is. But what we want to talk about, the upper house is legitimate. And it's much more simpler. Now, for example, GE16 will have to happen latest by early 2028.
Okay.
Right? And the government has openly said this, by none other than Deputy Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Fadila, that seat increase would not happen before that. Okay? Because you need to negotiate whether people accept 35%, and then if it's 35%, what's the total for the Dewan Rakyat?
Yeah.
And then for Semenanjung, you have to allocate the 65% to 11 states. There's no formula now. So this means everyone will have to negotiate, right? So it's impossible.
Okay.
Now, but you come to Dewan Negara, it's possible to have it before GE16. How? Because the number of seats in Dewan Negara is decided only by Article 45. So if in Article 45, we say we now, for every state, you get 2 seats. And the Labuan get 1 and so on. Then there are 44 from the federal, you go untouched. But for Sabah and Sarawak, we increase the number from 2 to 17.
Okay.
Done. Once it passed, you can actually have the appointment.
Okay.
Now, go back to your question and say, but senators are not elected.
Exactly.
Now, if it's not elected, it means that they're controlled by the state governments, right? So if you don't trust the state government, you can't trust the senator. Or some people say, I don't trust the senator. Behind the unwritten line is that because I don't trust my state government because they can sell out. We have seen what people talk about today, the passing of PDA, all this thing, the transfer of Labuan, done by whom? By your state government.
Okay.
So you don't trust them. Fine.
Okay.
Can we actually have direct election? We can. We don't even have to amend the federal constitution. So we amend the federal constitution to change the number, but to say have direct election, we just need to pass an act, a parliamentary act. How could that happen? Because under Article 45.4, Clause 4, they actually say you can have direct elections. So we can first do 2 things. Change the number for Sabah and Sarawak to 17. Immediately you get 30 extra seats.
Right.
Second thing, we pass a parliamentary act to have all these 34 senators elected. Now, why don't we elect everyone? Because if once you go into that, you're going to take 5 years, 4 years negotiation, right?
Exactly.
What we want is immediately for Sabah and Sarawak. So the question that I want to put to friends in Sabah and Sarawak is like, do you want autonomy power, your veto power before GE16? If you want, get it from Dewan Negara now.
Okay. So meaning that will be a shorter way of getting
and a more legitimate way.
more legitimate way rather than like we have to go on about this getting 35% in Dewan Rakyat.
Yep.
Which we don't know if it's going to happen or not, right?
Yeah. And you imagine on the other side,
yes,
would Malaya allow this to happen?
Indeed, yeah. So actually you have a valid point there to say that, this is the way how we're going to, move forward to this rather than, arguing as of now, right? But I like it when you say that, this is also making the state assembly or the state or the DUN accountable in this manner because you are the one who's sending the senator to
now you take away the power from them. You let people directly elected. But any constitutional amendment, give them a chance to work. So to rectify the amendment.
Yeah.
Then you protect yourself.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like you're pro.
But I want to add on one more thing. Now, if you're going to say give up your claim for 35%, they want raya, that seems to be a concession to the West, right? No, use that in advantage for your negotiation. Why? How? Look at what happened. Let's go back to 1973 again. 1973, as I mentioned, Singapore has more population, had a larger population than Sabah and Sarawak combined. But they get only 37.5% of Sabah and Sarawak share. Sabah and Sarawak together have 40, they have got 15.
Okay.
Right? Why do you think someone as smart as Mr. Lee Kuan Yew accept that raw deal? Lee Kuan Yew knew that Malaya didn't trust him.
Okay.
Malaya afraid of him. So I'm going to underrepresent you. If you want to marry me, you have to accept the deal, right? And Singapore say, fine, my share yang I tak dapat, I bagi Sabah Sarawak lah. And we go on add a bit more. That's where your 35% come in. But for Singapore alone, Singapore demanded state power in education,
yes.
in health, in labor, and also a greater say in borrowing money.
Yes.
That's what makes Singapore more powerful. Now, yesterday I was in Barisan Talk, and Dr. Sri Shafi Abdul talked about, I want education, if I become Chief Minister, I want education, I want health. How do you get this? You can get a deal like Sarawak, where they just agree by minister consent. Basically, I let you change everything, but it's purely administrative power. No guarantee in the federal constitution. What it means that next round, I have a different federal government. I can use that to blackmail you, right?
Okay.
You have to support me, otherwise I withdraw back everything.
Right.
How do you protect yourself? You want to make sure the power get transferred to, if not in the state list, at least to the concurrent list, right? In the 9th schedule of the federal constitution. So what you could do is that tell the federal government, we are willing to shift our demand in the lower house for upper house. But as a package deal, transfer education and health power to state list.
Okay.
So that's a better deal, because what you are doing would be like what Lee Kuan Yew want.
Right.
Lee Kuan Yew did. Lee Kuan Yew say, Tengku doesn't want Lee Kuan Yew to be a big kingmaker or a challenger in Kuala Lumpur. Lee Kuan Yew say, fine, we'll just be king in our own land, our little island. This is what you want. Because currently, if you give them, you get your 35%, you basically allow your MPs to be kingmakers to make more money on their behalf, their own, not on your behalf, right? But what you want is to get the power back. You should use giving up the 35% demand in the lower house for an immediate increase in upper house, and this demand the amendment to Article 9 schedule in the federal constitution.
Okay.
You can even ask for, say, a part of the income tax revenue directly go back to the state. Okay.
Now, let's move on beyond 35% now, and we know for a fact that this 35% will be something that, yes, of course, may be achievable, but it needs political will as well. For us to even get into an arrange, or in fact a negotiation of what you have mentioned earlier. But then, how to fight then? I mean, within the how do you see, how do we fight for Sabah and Sarawak? I mean, you see, right, tripartite negotiation is not going anywhere now. I mean, there is, of course, we have seen like progress in some of the rights under MA63, but then it doesn't go beyond like big like 40%, for example. SLS is bringing it to the court, right? And it's been going on for the last couple of years now. And then, anything that is involving money, should I say, in that way, we are not seeing negotiations and negotiation are going at the speed that we want. Okay. As for Sabah and Sarawak, right? The spot. That is how I see it, right? And of course, Sarawak they're very, very smart now. I mean, like, of course, they know how to. If one door closes, another one opens. Yeah. That's how they deal with it.
Yeah.
And
But they're not even getting their rights in the night schedule.
Exactly. But even so, this tripartite negotiation between three regions is not sort of like going at the speed of what we wanted, right? And when we brought, Sabah, for that matter, PH has mentioned, or in fact, Anwar Ibrahim has mentioned during election in 2022 that, the focus will be also on Sabah and Sarawak, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I'm not undermining, or I'm not saying that there's no progress. There is.
Betul itu.
Tapi terlampau lambat, orang bilang.
Ya, betul.
Lepas itu, kalau saya boleh tambah lagi, setiap kali ada kerajaan baru ini mesti ada jawatan kuasa MA63.
Ya, betul. Sudah 3.
3 sudah. So tapi tidak sampai mana-mana. Kan? Okay, so how to fight for Sabah and Sarawak like this? From an academic point of view, how do you see we go around this?
We should talk about political point of view.
Okay,
because
political.
that's most realistic. Now, the answer actually lies in part of your question. Just now you mentioned about 3 regions.
Yeah.
The negotiation between regions doesn't go far, right? You know why it doesn't go far? There's no 3 regions. There are only 2 regions and 11 states.
So meaning whatever changes, amendment that was made before, by saying that Sabah, Sarawak, and as well as Artikel 1/2. Are you telling me that it's all cosmetic then?
No, I'm saying that you are basically negotiating with a shadow, thinking that shadow can deliver to you.
Okay.
This is how.
Okay.
Before Malaysia was formed, of course there were 4 parties. Malaya, Singapore, Sabah and Sarawak.
Betul.
Sabah and Sarawak under British control, but 4, right? Once you form Malaysia, what happened is that you have, at the beginning, 3 regions and 11 states. Then the federal government. Now what people like to think is that in order to hold, to make sure we get our share, that what was promised, we hold the federal government to account, thinking the federal government would automatically represent the 11 states, right? Let me put it bluntly. Sabah and Sarawak look down at the 11 states and say, who are you to be my equal? So I only see the federal government as my equal. This is a trick. This is where you fail. Why? The 11 states and KL and Putrajaya, they hold 83% of electorate, 75% of MPs.
Okay.
Right? And you ask the federal government to make all this concession, assuming that all the states will come along. That's possible in the past when the federal government is tightly under one-party control. But if the federal is so much in the hands of one-party control, buat apa dia nak buat konsesi pada you?
Okay, yeah.
Right? So what happened now is what we are seeing is that we from Sabah and Sarawak can demand because the central is weak.
Yeah.
But if the central is weak, how can they carry the 11 states? The main thing here, 11 states tak dapat apa-apa pun apabila desentralisasi berlaku.
Okay.
So in that case, what it means that you count on the federal government to give concession. Federal government has no real incentive to give concession. Kerana kalau dia buat banyak terlalu concession, semua orang nak daripada dia, dia akan dimarah. Betul tak?
Betul.
So the solution is that for Sabah and Sarawak to break through that the old thinking. The old thinking is that it's 3. Right? 3 party.
Yeah.
3 parties. No. You should think of it, a negotiation involve 1 plus 2 plus 11. And the 2 and 11 must come together to demand more power from the federal. Why? Look at it now. In the past, Barisan Nasional control all 11 states there. Today, 4 di bawah tangan PN. Right?
Okay.
And then 3 di bawah nominasi PH. Yang lain, UMNO.
Betul.
Ataupun UMNO dengan PH. Their interests are not aligned.
Okay.
Federal is weak. For Sabah and Sarawak to get what you want, you have to lead. Better Abang Joe or Hajiji should call a summit inviting all the MPs and the Ketua Menteri to come and talk about what we want for a more fairer, balanced Malaysia. Trust me, every MB, every KM would want something. They would use to get what they want. Now, when 2 and 11 are united, the one cannot hold back for too long.
Okay.
Now it's a different story. So what we should look at is to look at MA63 as a lantai, bukan dinding. Maksudnya, whatever we have in MA63, we should get it or is equivalent. But we should not stop there.
Okay.
If you stop there, you basically cannot demand for health and education, right? Is health and education MA63 for you? No, you're not you're not Singapore. Singapore has it.
Okay.
You don't have it. So we should fight for MA63 plus. How do you get it? Not another MA63 tripartite committee and so on. You know they wouldn't deliver. Putrajaya cannot deliver too much without all the 11 states to back them up. The 11 states wouldn't back them up because dia apa pun tak dapat.
Okay.
So what we want is a IGC 2.0. The last IGC was Malaya, British, Sabah and Sarawak. Singapore was not in the part of the IGC.
Okay.
Right? What we today should have is the Malaysian federal government, Sarawak, Sabah, the 11 states.
All right.
Then you can discuss about it. So what we need to see is something more ambitious. We should not let our imagination be confined by MA63, which is how many years old? 62 years old. So we should look at differently.
Okay.
Dari kangga ke sempurna. Au dengan tebing nasib kita. MA63 asas kukuh tak sempurna. Perkasakannya tanggungjawab kita.
Okay, that's a sudden pantun pula yang kena bagi dengan kita. Tapi okay, it's like this, right? I concur to the points that you mentioned about having yes, IGC 2.0 and in fact Malaysian Agreement 2.0. Now, but then again, how would you want to talk about even having a 2.0 when 1.0 pun susah betul untuk kita mau dapatkan negotiation.
But this is exactly where we think we are stuck with 1.0 because there's no leadership from the East for the Malaya.
No, meaning you menidakkan Malaysian Agreement yang pertama.
Tidak. Kerana di sini kita kata menidakkan tu siapa? You tak dapat paksa siapa untuk buat apa yang you nak. You nak apa yang you nak. You nak dapat apa yang you nak. You kena susunkan barisan dulu. Jadi kita perlukan kepimpinan daripada timur untuk barat.
Okay.
Kerana 11 negeri itu terlalu lemah untuk menuntut.
Okay.
You tengok kadang-kadang Penang yang menuntut, kadang-kadang Johor yang menuntut, kadang-kadang Selangor yang menuntut, kadang-kadang Kelantan, Terengganu yang menuntut. Tapi mereka tak dapat satukan satu. Kan? Jadi siapa pun tak dapat.
Okay.
Jadi apa yang kita perlu, kalau kita tetap fikirkan dengan tripartite punya negotiation kita boleh dapat, kita berangan-angan saja.
Okay. So meaning
the only way is to be bold. Sabah and Sarawak lead Malaya, demand federal government to sit down. Everyone get more, and Sabah and Sarawak sentiasa get more than Malaya. Then you have a chance together.
Okay. Now let's move further again to decentralization within Sabah. Right? You also, we've heard people of Sabah, in fact, every politician's, in fact, it is, Sabah has always been fighting for decentralization, right? And as you mentioned that you went to, a talk yesterday, right? Education and whatsoever want to be decentralization. But obviously, we have to go back to the constitution and see, what is under Sabah. Now, you've also mentioned about reviving local elections.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Right? And actually, Sabah has a legal autonomy, right?
Yes.
To bring back local elections.
You're not controlled by the Federal Local Government Act. You're not controlled by that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is under Article 95D, if I'm not mistaken, and E of the Federal Constitution that exempts us, right, from uniform local government laws.
Yeah.
That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it has been confirmed, in fact, by the EC in 2010 that there's no federal barrier against this, right? So, what would it take politically, okay, for Sabah to revive local elections?
Okay. Let me put the picture a bit bigger.
Bigger, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
The reason why Malaysia cannot be more united than we are today is because powers are too concentrated, right? For example, Sabah and Sarawak feel very constrained, therefore you resist federal.
Right.
Let's look at it this way. Let's be very, very blunt. Isn't the same thing happen at the state level in Sabah? Orang cakap, unite we must.
Yeah.
Right? Tapi kenapa susah untuk unite? Kerana setiap ketua menteri naik ke atas, orang akan rasakan community-nya akan dapat lebih banyak kuasa. Betul tak? Dia akan kuasa KK. Orang kita akan hilang kuasa. Setiap kali kita buat begitu kan?
Right.
Same problem.
Okay.
So the solution is actually for you to decentralize Sabah. You get more power from... Today, I'm not asking you to decentralize Sabah kerana Sabah power tak cukup. Tapi bila you control federal, you control your education and health and so on, you have more money, you should decentralize Sabah. And I'm not saying going to your majlis daerah, majlis perbandaran sekarang. Why? Most of them will go bankrupt. They have too little money.
Okay.
What we need is actually a larger entity. You traditionally have 4 divisions, right?
Yes.
4 or 5 divisions. So what you should do is skip them, but you can carve out the metropolitan area, KK, Sandakan, Tawau,
So we're
as their
talking about
own
residency?
Residency. Yes, you should have your residency. So you carve out this as extra. Then you are talking about somewhere around 7 to 8 residency in Sabah.
Okay.
Now, they would be financially viable, especially if they're allowed to share some of the taxes collected by the state.
Okay.
Now, why this is important, then everyone can protect themselves. Betul tak? Setiap community boleh rasa lebih terjaga. That's more important. Kita lihat bila dalam apa yang macam batu bersumpah tu, dia kata semangat penjaga.
Yes.
Yang semangat yang paling penjaga yang paling dalam erti modern is actually decentralisasi.
Right.
Kalau you dapat tu, setiap orang boleh jaga tempat dia.
Okay.
Jadi kita akan lihat kurang pertembungan antara timur dan barat,
Okay.
malah antara different community di kalangan Bajau.
Okay.
So you see less of that competition because everyone can get what their fair share.
Okay. So another, I think, there will be another concern, right? So if they say that, Sabah or Sarawak, but I'm talking about Sabah for this matter, right?
Sure.
Is given more power at the state level, you decentralize.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask this, right? Could decentralization also protect Sabah from political instability?
Yes, in the sense that if
In federal coalition, I would say.
oh, you mean from federal?
Yes.
Okay, you mean that would this actually prevent Sabah secession
Correct.
from the federal point of view?
Correct, yes.
Yes. This is a part that it would happen. And I'll just give you an example in Indonesia. Now, Indonesia was very centralized under General Suharto. After Suharto, after democratization, they have to undergo decentralization. Because if tidak, bukan saja East Timor, Aceh, Ambon, Papua New Irian Jaya, they all want to break free. So the deal was that we're going to decentralize. But in Indonesia, they did it very smartly. They decentralized bukan saja kepada lebih kurang 30 lebih provinsi, but all the way to about 300-400 kabupaten. That's residency.
Okay.
So what happened is that now you can have a provincial governor because their system is like presidential.
Right.
So you can have a provincial government the governor that's very ambitious, wanting to push for secession. But he would make he doesn't control the power.
Yep.
You have all this kabupaten there. Would everyone agree with him? It's hard.
Tidak lah.
Susah. Kan?
Masing-masing ada kepala lah.
Dan mereka mungkin lebih suka di bawah Jakarta.
Okay.
So that's protect Jakarta. Everyone get what they want, but you're not creating local strongman. Dan tiba-tiba saya nak jadi Sultan Sabah. Itu yang federal takut.
Yeah.
Ingat tak? Kalau dulu kita lihat pada mulanya hubungan Tengku dengan Tun Mustafa Harun sangat karib kan? Kenapa kemudian berubah?
Yes.
Kerana federal takut Tun Mustafa akan jadi Sultan Sabah.
Betul. Yeah.
Right? So when you have you break this down, you have your elected divisional residency government. Here you call residency. You have your residency government. Satu untuk KK, satu untuk Pantai Barat, satu untuk pedalaman, satu untuk Sandakan, satu Libaran, satu Tawau, satu Karabakan, satu Kudat, and so on. Senang tak nak bawa Sabah keluar Malaysia? So federal actually probably would be more secure, feeling lebih selamat untuk desentralisasi.
Okay. Tapi ada juga yang mengatakan bahawa kalau kita melakukan ini and then you have local government election lah, kiranya begitu kan. Obviously kalau ada yang mengatakan bahawa ini mungkin tidak dapat dilakukan sebab why? Mahal kan. Terlampau banyak lagi kalau kita mau ganti sebelum itu. Tapi ada juga baru-baru ini, in fact I think it's my second or third episode. I was one of the scholars from UiTM and they said that they agree to this but maybe do it incrementally. Like say for example, maybe one residency or one place kita elect, yang lain dulu appointment. Lepas tu pelan-pelan baru election.
You can do two step. You can start off is say KK, Sandakan, Tawau, the metropolitan area first. Then you have a clear timetable. Selepas 5 tahun kita expand. Right? But in between ada masalah kita perbetulkan. So possible. But I want to respond to that common sentiment. Pilihan raya terlalu mahal.
Yes.
Saya setuju. Pilihan raya sangat-sangat mahal. Tapi rasuah lebih mahal atau kurang mahal? Pengkhianatan lebih mahal atau kurang mahal? Right?
Yeah.
So we have to look at some expenses. Kalau katakan kita beri satu kereta, satu rumah yang dengan pelindungan yang sistem gate elektronik, surveillance elektronik itu mungkin sangat mahal, tapi itu perbelanjaan ataupun pelaburan. Betul tak? Saya rasa kita perlu fikirkan itu. Ada cara untuk mengurangkan kos pilihan raya. Sebagai contohnya, kalau kita menghadkan perbelanjaan untuk pilihan raya, pelaksananya tak semesti begitu mahal. Sekarang mahal. Kerana orang politik kena belanja banyak. Kerana kita tak ada pun debat TV. Setiap orang kena belanja banyak. Tapi kalau kita ada cara untuk pastikan banyak expense tu perbelanjaan tu dihadkan, ditanggung oleh kerajaan dengan guna premis kerajaan sebagainya dengan TV kerajaan, actually tak begitu mahal.
Saya sebenarnya sangat bersetuju dan menyambut baiklah idea untuk local election ni sebenarnya, ataupun desentralisasi ke peringkat di Sabah, or in that matter kita ada macam idea residensi itulah. Kenapa? Sebab saya juga melihat dari sudut pandang ekonomi, sosioekonomi. Apabila kita memberikan kuasa kepada so-called residency ini, right? Dari sudut pandang perbelanjaan ataupun in terms of budget. Satu, sudahlah kau kena elect kan, meaning you are accountable to the people in that area. So duit itu pun kita mau tengok, duit itu pergi mana, you are accountable. So saya rasa ini adalah satu cara juga untuk kita mengurangkan isu integriti yang sentiasa diperkatakan.
Setuju. Dan kita buat andaikan kita buat proyeksi yang paling teruk pun berlaku korupsi, sekurang-kurangnya dana yang tertiris itu jatuh ke tanah tempatan. Bukan tidak concentrate di KK.
Tidak sampai di tanah.
Ya. Dan saya nak bagikan kredit kepada Datuk Seri Dr. Jeffrey Ketingan pasal ni. Kerana dia yang pertama mengatakan kita nak revivekan residency. Tapi dia tak tambah tentang pilihan raya lah. Apa yang saya nak tambahkan, kalau kita revive residency di Sabah, kita seharusnya masukkan dalam perlembagaan apakah kuasa yang dipindah daripada Semenanjung, daripada perlembagaan persekutuan itu dipindah, tidak tinggal di negeri tetapi ke residensi. Sebagai contohnya, adat, kuasa untuk mengawal adat, itu harus pergi ke residensi. tanah. Itu harus bagi residensi. Dan tanah cukup penting.
Oh, yes.
Itu yang selalu mewujudkan pembalahan dan juga perpecahan rakyat.
Betul
tak? Tapi kalau dia dikawal oleh kerajaan residensi yang dipilih rakyat, isu menjadi kurang.
Ya, saya rasa ini satu idea yang cukup baik untuk bukan sahaja dibincangkan secara akademik, tetapi juga perlu dibawa ke kerajaan yang mungkin mudah-mudahan kerajaan yang selepas PRN Sabah ini. Okay, so let's move on now. Since I mentioned about PRN Sabah, kita sudah sekarang berada di ambang PRN ke-17 Sabah. Dan saya rasa ini adalah banyak isu yang boleh dibincangkan dengan Prof Wong. Banyak. There's a lot of issues for us to discuss about this, obviously, but of course with time constraint. But we will just talk about a couple of things here.
Yeah.
Maybe hopefully in the next when sudah sampai bubar nanti, Prof Wong boleh datang lagi dan mungkin kita boleh bincang lagi tentang keadaan semasa pada waktu itu. Namun bagaimanapun untuk episod kali ini kita mungkin akan membincangkan beberapa perkara saja yang penting yang setakat inilah. Alright, okay. Let's talk about postal votings. Okay, many Sabahans actually work or study outside the state. We know that very well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now without expanding postal voting, right? They will face obviously high travel cost. They will just to cast a ballot.
Yeah.
Can you imagine lah kan? You dari Pensiangan, you kerja di mana itu? Di KL. Kau turun pergi KK, harga tambang pun sudah 500. Satu jalan 300.
Yeah.
Pergi balik 600.
Yeah.
Alright. Daripada KK dan you mau pergi Pensiangan lagi.
Yeah.
Pun berapa lagi tambang tu kan? Just to cast a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. So postal votes now, right? Covers mainly only the the security forces, I think. Yeah, security forces, civil servants, some from overseas lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But leaving, I would say, millions of Malaysians out.
Ini cerita benar. Tadi saya datang dengan Grab. Saya tanya abang Grab tu, dia orang Keningau. Saya kata kali ini akan undi tak? Dia kata ya. Kali pertama, kerana daripada 1998 sampai 2022, dia berada di KL. Dia kata dia tak pernah mengundi. Kerana nak undi nak balik, mahal. Jadi dia skip 1999, 2004, 2008, 2013, 2022. 5 PRU dia tak pernah balik.
Okay.
Dan ini soalan yang sebenarnya kita perlu bincang.
Yeah.
Kita cakap pasal banyak MA63. Malaysia adalah janji bahawa kita semua, tak kira di Sabah, di Semenanjung, di Sarawak, kita akan bersama-sama maju lebih ke depan.
Okay.
Kerana bersama. Apa maknanya Malaysia ni kalau rakyat Sabah terpaksa meninggalkan kampung halaman kerana tak cukup peluang pilihan, peluang pekerjaan, peluang pendidikan di sini. Okay. Tetapi kerana mereka terpaksa merantau, mereka tak boleh balik mengundi. Mereka tak ada terpaksa melepaskan hak untuk menentukan nasib kampung halamannya.
Ya, betul.
Apa maknanya? Saya rasa malu sebagai rakyat Malaysia. Apabila kita tidak memperjuangkan hak rakyat yang dipinggirkan, dan kita perlu menentukan, menitik beratkan ini. Bukan semua rakyat Sabah yang terkena, yang terkesan. Kerana kalau you top 20,
you can go mengundi lah.
Apa yang tadi you kata tu, dia bukan balik dengan 600 balik ulang, dia boleh ambil first class, business class kan?
Yeah, exactly.
Tak ada masalah. Tapi ini yang kata adalah orang yang paling miskin. Anda miskin, anda hilang hak mengundi secara automatik.
Okay. Saya kalau saya mau tambah, right? Sebab sekarang ini kita ada undi 18.
Yeah.
I mean, kalau kita tengok mostly lah, kebanyakan kita punya anak-anak muda di Sabah ini, dia akan selepas Form 5 or whatever, kebanyakannya akan pergi ke Semenanjung, right, untuk sambung belajar di sana. Of course kita ada institusi pendidikan di sini, tetapi kebanyakan, saya pun begitu juga dulu. Okay, pergi ke Semenanjung ataupun di luar negara. see, I melihat ini perkara dia begini tau. You bagi umur undi 18 tahun you kasih turun untuk pergi mengundi. Tapi dia tidak dapat pergi mengundi oleh sebab tiada medium untuk postal vote seperti ini.
Kerana orang bayangkan orang muda Sabah ini semua kaya-kaya belaka. 600 orang alik tak ada masalah. 500 4-wheel drive dari KK ke Pensiangan tak ada masalah. Dia fikirkan mereka kaya-kaya tapi dia sangat suka pergi ke KL untuk kerja sebagai waiter. Dia ingat orang Sabah sangat relax.
Tidaklah.
Kan itu yang pada pandangan mereka.
Correct.
Kalau tidak, kalau mereka cintakan Sabah, kalau orang kata anak Sabah anak saya, kenapa dia tak berikan hak
untuk mengundi
secara pos?
Correct.
Apa susahnya?
Kalau kita tidak melaksanakan, ini pandangan saya lah kan, kalau kita tidak melaksanakan undian pos ini, seolah-olah kan macam pilihan raya ini hanya untuk orang yang golongan berkemampuan saja itu.
Memang itu yang menjadi masalah. Kalau letih, pergilah tidur. Kalau panas, pergilah mandi. Melantau kerana negeri mundur. Jangan didenda lagi demi undi. Tapi saya nak tanya, Jo, tadi you sebut tentang undi 18.
Yes.
Kita tahu undi 18 ini berlaku kerana ada seorang pemimpin, Syed Saddiq.
Yes.
Okey. Rakan baik Bella sekarang. Saya nak tanya, di Sabah ada tak siapa yang perjuangkan hak mengundi pos ini? Sebenarnya kalau DUN akan bersambung sampai hari terakhir iaitu 8 hari bulan Oktober dan pilihan raya berlaku pada penghujung November, kita ada 3 bulan. Sebenarnya undi pos tak semesti langsung tidak boleh berlaku. Cuma dia mungkin
ambil masa.
Bukan. Dia akan hadkan masa pendaftaran supaya sebilangan kecil yang masuk. Kalau anda tak daftar, cepat tak dapat. Tapi masih kan?
Masih.
Soalan saya adalah, ada tak siapa pemimpin Sabah yang ingatkan anak-anak Sabah yang mungkin tak cukup kaya atau terlalu miskin untuk balik mengundi? Okey.
Saya rasa tidak ada juga pemimpin yang membawa suara ini. In fact, kalau saya ni pun hari ini saya membawa isu ini dan topik ini untuk Prof Wong untuk kita bincangkan. Sebab saya pun terfikir juga tentang benda ini kan.
Jo memang lain lah.
Thank you. Okay, tapi saya melihat bahawa memang ada satu keperluan untuk kita memperluaskan lagi medium atau untuk kita melaksanakan postal voting ini supaya kita menunjukkan bahawa alright, undi 18 sudah turun, now you bagi sudah kami untuk pergi mengundi. Of course ada orang cakap automatic voters registration, lepas tu you've done that, tapi ada yang cakap jugalah. Okay, ini yang saya dengar apabila saya turun dengar cerita, kalaupun kita undi pos pun dia bilang kena rig gitu dia bilang. Kena manipulasi. Itu kita punya undi nanti kena manipulasi dia bilang.
Ada cara yang lebih baik.
Mungkin ada cara yang boleh dikongsikan.
Kalau kita ambil masa panjang, kita boleh buat pengundian jarak jauh. Ingat tak dulu masa kita buat vaksinasi, kita buka Dewan Besar, kemudian semua orang datang kan? Kita boleh buat begitu di KL, di Johor, di Penang, di mana banyak orang anak Sabah, anak Sarawak berada, dan anda mendaftar, jadi anda membuat pengundian awal. Undi secara fizikal.
Fizikal lah.
Dan ada ejen parti untuk memastikan tak ada hanky-panky. Lepas sebelum hari mengundi dia tutup dan undi untuk dihantar balik. Boleh. Ada pelbagai cara. Masalahnya sekarang orang besar di Putrajaya tak rasakan itu isu penting. Jawapan mereka adalah anda pindah alamat. Kalau anda pergi sana 3 bulan, pindah alamat, jadi tak ada masalah nak balik. Tapi kalau kita ikut logik ini, kita tahu kawasan Pensiangan lah, Kinabatangan lah, Kalabakan, Tongon, semua ini kan orang terpaksa Imigrasi. Maksudnya adakah kerana mereka lepas imigrasi, mereka harus hilang pengundi? Orang di Putrajaya kadang-kadang tak fikirkan itu. Dia ikut teori, dia kata semua negara boleh buat macam tu, kenapa kita tak boleh?
Okay.
Tapi dia tak fikirkan, orang sini, macam saya tanya abang Grab saya, kata, bang kenapa you dah sana 26 tahun, kenapa tak tukar address? Dia jawapannya, dia kata, kita di sana saja, kita akhirnya nak balik sini. Dan kita tak tahu berapa lama di tempat tu. Jadi saya rasa kita perlu, kita perlu giatkan perjuangan ini. Tapi Joe, mungkin terlewat untuk PRN. Tapi daripada sekarang PRN ke PRU,
yes.
kita ada 2 tahun.
Dan kita ada juga beberapa negeri yang akan ada PRN dia. Melaka,
Sarawak.
Dan Sarawak. Yes.
Dan kita bincang di sini dululah. Mungkin tak rasanya ada parti dalam PRN ini akan masukkannya sebagai manifesto. Kerana kalau mereka bentuk kerajaan, sudah pasti kerajaan negeri Sabah boleh tuntut SPR lakukannya.
Betul.
Sekarang SPR tak buat kerana kerajaan Sabah, Sarawak semua tak tuntut.
I think kan ini satu perkara yang cukup baik juga sebab kalau kita tengok kan di peratusan anak muda di Sabah ini, in fact kalau kita tengok di OSM baru-baru, Sabah has the highest 18 to 40 years old.
Right.
33%. Okay. So meaning kita pun secara automatik pun banyak juga pengundi kita lah. Alright. Dan saya melihat oleh sebab ni berikutan undi 18 ini, dia juga kita melihat banyak parti sudah yang mula bercakap tentang orang muda. Tetapi dia tidak
lupa mereka yang merantau.
Exactly. So but then it's not translated into votes. Pula kan. You talk about young people, but if the young people, the young, I would say, okay, of course in Putrajaya meaning of anak muda is 18 to 30, but for me I think it's 40 and below lah. That is my that's my idea of it, 18 to 40. So meaning kan you are not sama juga, you are not giving equal access untuk demokrasi. Sistem demokrasi begini.
Kalau kita lihat daripada statistik pilihan raya, Sabah dan Sarawak sekalipun apabila dalam PRU dan PRN bersama kan, kadar mengundi rendah daripada Semenanjung sampai 5 sampai 10 percentage point. Selain faktor lain, saya rasa satu sebabnya adalah ramai tidak dalam kawasan. Dan bukan semesti di sana. Tadi Joe berikan contoh antara KK dengan pensiangan kan. Fikirkan, sekalipun kalau datang daripada pensiangan, anda kerja di KK, semesti tak ada balik. Tak semesti pun kan. Sebenarnya kalau kita harus berfikir, akhirnya dalam masa lebih panjang, hak mengundi itu tidak terhad kepada kawasan mana kita ada. Jadi kalau kita buat pos undi, kita boleh buat dalam negeri juga kalau dia jauh. Tetapi kalau dia dekat tak perlulah. Kalau number 1 dan pensiangan boleh bagilah. Tapi KK dengan pensiangan kenapa tak boleh?
So I think ini, saya rasa isu ini harus terus kita suarakan. Kita perjuangkan bukan saja ahli-ahli politik tapi NGO, we have to continue to talk about anak muda terutamanya.
Justice for Sabahan, perantau Sabah.
Yes. So saya rasa ini adalah isu yang harus kita terus perjuangkan. Hopefully before we can see some changes before PRU yang akan datang. So last one, Sabah's PRN fluidity. So politik Sabah ini sering bergerak yang rentak dia berbeza dengan Malaya lah. I would say Malaya because that
you're
is
more excited than this.
We are more, orang bilang
more
dramatic, berwarna-warni kan. So gabungan di sini lebih fluid. Personality yang merentasi garis parti pun politik di sini dia juga, alright. So
tukar baju selalu.
Tapi muka sama. Jersey saja tukar, alright. So I know that you have been researching ataupun sudah mengkaji corak ini dalam beberapa kitaran pilihan raya, right? Dan bagaimana Prof dapat melihat, sekarang ini kita tengok hari ini bilang GRS PH bersama, lepas tu PH dengan UMNO bersama, tapi GRS dengan UMNO bergaduh. Lepas itu
suami isteri dan madu.
Cinta tiga segi. Okay. Lepas itu kalau dia bilang, lepas tu PMX datang baru-baru ini. Dia cakap kita elakkan pertembungan antara tiga ini. Alright. Yang menyebabkan bahawa para pengundi ini dia bingung sudah. Dia bilang, siapa kita? Apa ini? Mana satu yang kita mau pilih? Mana satu yang kita mau undi? Sebab kerajaan mana pun kita tidak tahu. Okay. Itu coalition lah. Coalition yang sangat fluid. Okay. Lebih-lebih lagi dia berkawan sama PH. Okay. PH. Lepas tu yang sebelahnya mau bergaduh. Kadang saya pun bingung. Setiap hari ada saja bertukar-tukar cerita dia. Okay. Lepas itu dia ini seolah-olah kan dia macam hanya permainan orang-orang golongan elit saja. Okay. Jadi membuatkan pengundi ini, it will come to the point where it's political apathy sudah. Diorang tidak mau sudah pergi mengundi. And I'm not surprised this time if I would see dengan keadaan seperti ini, peratusan mengundi untuk PRN akan turun.
Mungkin parti yang paling besar tu bukan PN, bukan GRS, BN ataupun PH, tapi PAMU, Parti Aku Malas Undi.
Pun boleh jadi juga. Langsung tidak turun mengundi. And then jangankan bilang dia punya coalition. Dia punya di mana, di berapa kerusi you dapat. Okay. Coalition ini berapa kerusi yang dapat pun sehingga hari ini belum ada kata putus yang perfect lah orang bilang.
Dan calon boleh dicampak mana-mana kan? Sehingga
kan silap-silap masa penamaan calon baru ada dia punya calon.
Adapun calon yang mungkin last minute watika ditukar.
Parachute. I call this the parachute punya calon. Kan? So ini lagi Sabah ini lagi menarik. Satu kawasan itu kalau sudah dia tidak boleh, sudah dia bilang free for all. Satu tu boleh sampai 11 penjuru, ada yang sampai 13 penjuru. Macam ditandik hari itu PRN 2020. So ini adakah itu demokrasi yang bermakna?
Okay. Bagus sungguh soalan ini, Jo. Saya rasa apa yang kita menghadapi adalah persaingan yang sangat mantap. Itu perkara baik. Dan hakiki di Sabah, tak ada satu parti yang boleh mendominasi semua. Dan juga ada komuniti-komuniti yang menentukan parti itu kita pasti tolak. Jadi menjadikannya sangat kompleks kan. Jadi apa yang ini memaksa semua parti untuk bergabung pada setakat mana yang boleh. Apa yang menjadi masalah adalah ini. Sistem kita, bukan sahaja di Sabah, seluruh Malaysia, dia sangat mengikat. Dia tidak membenarkan kawan bersaing. Itu menjadi masalah.
Okay.
Kerana kita cuma boleh letak satu parti di satu kawasan kan. Kalau dua orang rakan masuk, dia akan pecahkan undi sesama.
Betul.
Kedua-dua kalah. Bagaimana kita boleh selesaikan? Kita boleh sebenarnya tambahkan kerusi di lapisan yang lain. Saya bagi contoh negara jiran kita, Thailand. Kalau pergi Thailand, untuk pilihan raya parlimennya, setiap pengundi ada 2 undi. Satu undi ada untuk pilih wakil rakyat tempatan seperti kita. Jadi kalau parti nak langgar, tak nak langgar boleh berpakat, itu terpulang. Tapi rakyat satu undi pilih satu orang.
Okay.
Kemudian dia ada satu parlimennya lebih kurang 500 ahli parlimen. Saya rasa 100 lebih kurang 350 tu adalah untuk kawasan. Dan 150 tu untuk parti. Dia seluruh Thailand satu kawasan. Dia tak bagi lagi. Jadi rakyat untuk undi kedua dia pilih parti saja.
Okay.
Dan parti akan menyeraikan 150 nama Kalau parti itu dapat 20% undi, dia dapat 30 kerusi yang 30 kerusi dan 30 orang pertama tu masuk. Kalau 30 orang tu ada yang gugur, ada yang keluar parti, ada yang bankrupt, maka yang ke-31 ganti. Tak perlu PRK. Jadi cara itu dia membenarkan kalau dua parti dan parti A dan parti B, dia boleh berpakat satu saja orang yang berlawan, tetapi terus bersaing di peringkat untuk party list. Jadi dengan cara itu kita menyelesaikan masalah. Maksudnya rakyat dapat 2 undi. Untuk yang sama, bukan untuk federal dan parlimen dan DUN. Untuk DUN, katakan kita buat macam tu, dia ada 2 undi. Jadi kita pilih calon tempatan, satu kita pilih parti. Jadi dengan cara itu, ketidaktentuan akan kurang.
Saya rasa kalau saya boleh tambahkan, kan ini mungkin satu cara juga untuk sesebuah parti itu berkembang. Kenapa saya katakan begitu? Sebab kita tengoklah di Sabah ini ya. Kawasan urban area only satu parti saja yang biasa tanding sana. Contohlah macam kalau Inana memang PKR punya seat lah tu dia bilang. Kalau bilang di Kepayan memang itu confirm di AP punya seat saja. Right? And they cannot go beyond there. And then kalau bilang kawasan KDM dia bilang PBS saja ataupun Star ataupun APCO saja yang boleh tanding di kawasan itu. Dia macam untuk mengelakkan bonsai parti.
Parti itu dia terbuntut, dia tak boleh
terbantut.
Dia tak boleh bertumbuh lagi.
Jadi ini menyebabkan satu parti itu mungkin tidak boleh bertumbuh dengan adanya sistem kita yang itu kawasan itu sejalah yang boleh tanding. Itu saya punya pendapat lah tentang perkara ini.
Memang benar. Apa yang kita perlu adalah untuk pertingkatkan persaingan tetapi dengan cara yang lebih profesional. Bukan macam sekarang.
Alright.
Sekarang semua tidak tentu. Kalau kita lihat negara lain, apa yang berlaku adalah parti mungkin adakan pemilihan dalaman seperti primary di Amerika Syarikat untuk tentukan siapa, kemudian bertanding. Kita tidak. Kita dari top down. Bukan bottom up, top down. Dan top down itu yang menyebabkan fenomena yang Joe kata, orang biasa rasa ini permainan orang elit, orang-orang besar. Orang kebanyakan tak kena mengena. Macam you pergi satu restoran, dia tunjukkan, ini menunya. Suka tak suka balik rumah. Sebab itu mungkin penyokong pamu kali ini akan
bertambah banyak.
Jadi saya rasa ini tak mungkin berlaku serta-merta, tapi sebenarnya boleh kita berubah. Satu perubahannya secara sangat ringkas adalah kita mereformasikan 6 kerusi dilantik. Sekarang, siapa yang jadi kerajaan negeri boleh melantik siapa saja. Dan dia tak kisah apa. Dia perlukan sokongnya, bagi. Dia kawan baik, bagi. Anak, bagi. Apa yang boleh dibuat adalah 6 kerusi itu kita boleh bahagikan mengikut sokongan parti sebagai contoh. Dan mula daripada situ, lain kali kita boleh tambahkan, besarkan macam adun lantikan, tapi semua dipilih secara seluruh negeri ataupun mengikut residensi.
Saya rasa kalau
dan
kita
mengikut parti lah.
So saya rasa perbincangan kita hari ini lebih banyak kita bincangkan tentang reformasi ini yang baru orang bilang reformasi bukan reformati. So untuk kita menutup tirai, before we wrap this up, Prof, one thing you wish more people understood about democracy?
Saya rasakan bila kita sebut tentang demokrasi, yang kita kenali adalah demokrasi yang sangat memusat, majoritarian. Maksudnya siapa menang, sapu semua. Kalah, hilang semua. Jadi menyebabkan masyarakat kita sangat resah. Kita selalu lihat kan, kalau kita tak keluar, kita habis semua. Itu bukan sahaja di Sabah, seluruh Malaysia pun. Jadi saya rasa apa yang kita perlu buat secara keseluruhannya ialah untuk mengurangkan sifat pemusatan kuasa ini supaya kita semua rasa lebih selamat. Kenapa sistem ini berkekalan? Kerana dia macam loteri. Yang menang tu rasakan dia sentiasa menang. Jadi macam you sentiasa beli loteri. Apa yang kita harus tukar mentaliti, tukar paradigma kita ialah mengiktiraf bahawa kehidupan ada hari siang, ada hari hujan. Jadi apa kita buat dalam hidup biasa? Kita beri insurans.
Okay.
Right? Jadi kalau kita ubahkan sistem macam tu, jadikan kuasa lebih terpancah. Macam tadi kita bincangkan desentralisasi di peringkat residensi, sistem pilihan raya yang ada party list, perwakilan berkadar dan sebagainya, Senat yang lebih kuat, hak veto untuk Sabah Sarawak di Dewan Rakyat.
Okay.
Semua tu kita akan berjaya, negara kita akan lebih baik.
Okay.
Jadi saya nak menyimpul dengan ini.
Okay.
Tambahlah susu kalau kopi pekat. Kuatkan kipas kalau baju basah. Kuasa memusat, rakyat tersekat. Rakyat tersekat, hati berpisah.
Nah, itu dia. Saya rasa itu pantun yang cukup baik untuk kita menutup tirai pada hari ini. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming to this podcast. Terima kasih kerana hadir pada hari ini. Dan kepada penonton di luar sana, diharapkan perbincangan hari ini dapat membuka minda kita untuk melihat perubahan ataupun reform yang boleh kita buat bukan sahaja di peringkat nasional tetapi kita di peringkat Sabah. Jadi terima kasih sekali lagi Prof dan juga semua para pendengar pada episod kali ini. Jangan lupa, do not forget to follow us on our social media platform, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Until we meet again, Sabah cakap, Malaysia dengar.